The morning began like any other. The sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in gold and red, and the world moved with its usual rhythm. People walked to work, children went to school, and the sound of traffic filled the streets. On that morning, no one imagined that in just a few hours, the sky itself would turn against them. No one imagined that this would be the day humanity's peace would burn away, high above Earth, beyond the clouds, beyond even the reach of most satellites. Something vast was waiting. They had been there for 3 days, silent and unseen, hiding behind the shadows of the moon. Hundreds of dark shapes, bigger than mountains, drifted silently, each one shaped like a dagger, pointing toward the planet below. Their hulls reflected no light, their engines whispered no sound. They were ghosts in the void, and their eyes were fixed on Earth. At first, no one noticed. The world's satellites, military and civilian, were blinded at the same time. It happened with no warning. One moment, every camera, radar, and communication channel worked. The next, they all went black. Television screens flickered with static. Radio waves turned into noise. GPS signals vanished. Confusion spread fast, but panic had not yet begun. People thought it was a glitch, some kind of solar storm, maybe even a cyber attack. It would be fixed soon, they told themselves. Then the message came, across every screen that still worked, in every language known to Earth. A voice spoke. It was deep, cold, and inhuman. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that froze everyone who heard them. Earth, you are now claimed. You will surrender. You will kneel. You have 1 hour to comply. Refuse, and you will be erased. There was no image, only the sound. But those who were watching the skies with powerful telescopes saw something that turned fear into terror. The dark shapes had moved out from behind the moon. They were coming in cities around the world. People rushed to their windows, their rooftops, their balconies. They pointed to the horizon. Small dots, at first no bigger than stars, grew larger with each passing minute. These were not planes. These were not meteors. The dots became ships, and then the ships became giants, blotting out the sun as they descended through the clouds. The world erupted in chaos. News anchors tried to stay calm, but could barely keep their voices steady. Governments scrambled jets, tanks, anything that could move, but no one knew what they were facing. Soldiers looked to the skies with weapons ready, though they knew in their hearts their guns were useless. Ordinary people screamed and prayed. Some fled to underground shelters, while others froze where they stood, staring upward as if watching. The end of the world. The first blast came without warning. A beam of white light, silent and pure, cut through the sky and struck the city of Jakarta. For a moment, everything in the beam's path turned to glass, then to dust. A column of fire rose miles high, and a second later, the sound came a roar so loud it shattered windows 50 kilometers away. Where the city had stood, there was now a crater glowing like a furnace. The world stopped. The voice spoke again, colder this time. This is your warning. Submit. In Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and every other capital, leaders shouted orders into dead phones. The satellites were gone. Their own communication networks were dying. They could not coordinate a defense. They could barely even speak to one another. The aliens had cut the planet's nervous system in seconds, and now humanity was paralyzed. And yet, deep below the surface, far from the panic above, there were places the aliens had not found. In a bunker buried miles under the Rocky Mountains, a group of men and women sat around a black table. The room was dim, lit only by a single screen showing a live feed from a secure orbital sensor, one of the few that still worked. On it, the alien fleet drifted, each ship so large it dwarfed Earth's largest cities. The people at the table did not scream. They did not panic. They simply watched, waiting. At the head of the table, a man with steel-gray hair and eyes like ice leaned forward. His voice was calm, but it carried a quiet fury. "They think we are prey," he said. No one replied. They were all waiting for the same words. The man reached for a secure phone, one of the few lines still active, hardwired to systems far from the surface. He pressed a single button. "Begin the awakening," he said. "It's time." Miles beneath the oceans, in caverns carved from the earth itself, massive shapes stirred. They were not alien. They were human. For decades, humanity had prepared for a day it prayed would never come. In secret, beneath layers of rock and water, engineers and soldiers had built things the public would never believe, machines designed not just for defense, but for vengeance. In the depths, lights flickered on as colossal engines roared to life. Black hulls, sleek and armored, began to move. These were not ships anyone on the surface had seen before. They were faster, stronger, and more dangerous than anything humanity had ever launched into space. They had been built with technology no nation admitted to owning, powered by reactors no civilian scientist would believe existed. As the first of these war machines rose from the ocean, breaking through the waves like some metal leviathan, people on nearby coasts screamed. They thought it was another alien craft. But this one bore the flag of Earth. No nation, no division, just a single symbol. A circle of blue surrounding a silver star. In orbit, the alien fleet adjusted. Their scanners detected the human ship, but their reports were confused. The ship was too small to be a threat, yet its energy readings spiked beyond anything in their databases. It wasn't possible, they told themselves. Humans were primitives. They had barely left their planet. They could not have built this. In the human ship's command deck, the crew worked silently. The captain, a woman with a scar across her cheek and a voice like steel, stood before the main display. The alien ships glowed red on the screen, each one a death sentence waiting to fall on Earth. She placed her hand on the activation key for the ship's primary weapon. "Target the lead vessel," she said. The weapon systems hummed. The air around the crew grew heavy as the ship's core began to spin. A low, rising sound echoed through the hull, as if the ship itself was growling. Outside, energy gathered along its forward cannon, forming a sphere of light so bright it turned the night sky to day. The captain looked at her crew, each one tense but ready. "This is not surrender," she said. "This is Earth's answer." The cannon fired. A beam of light, pure and silent, shot across the void. It struck the alien flagship, and for a moment, the entire ship froze in space. Then, without warning, it shattered, not exploded, not burned, but shattered, breaking apart into a million glowing fragments that scattered like ash on the wind. On Earth, people watching from the ground gasped. For the first time that day, hope flickered in their hearts. The invincible invaders had bled. In the alien fleet, chaos erupted. Their comms were filled with static and screams. Their commanders shouted orders, but no one knew how to respond. Their shields had failed. Their most powerful ship was gone, destroyed by a single human shot. The human captain lowered her hand. Her face was calm, but her voice carried the weight of something far greater than fear. "Tell the world," she sighed. "Earth is not falling. Tonight we fight back." Far below, in the bunker, the man with the steel-gray hair heard the report. A faint smile crossed his face. "They wanted us to kneel," he said softly. "Instead, they will kneel." The sky above Earth still burned. Alien ships still loomed, ready to strike again. But humanity had shown its first card, and it was only the beginning. For the first time, the invaders realized the truth. Earth was not prey. Earth was a predator, and the hunt had just begun. The morning started as a normal day. Over the continents and the seas, people woke up to the sound of alarms and the warm glow of sunlight breaking over the horizon. The streets of New York filled with workers rushing to their jobs. In Tokyo, trains sped down steel tracks, carrying thousands to their offices. Children played in schoolyards, shouting and laughing. The sky was blue, the air calm, and there was no sign that the world was about to change forever. High above that calm sky, beyond even the reach of Earth's most powerful telescopes, something moved. It had been moving for 3 days. Hundreds of shapes, massive and dark, drifted silently in the cold void, hidden just behind the shadow of the moon. Each ship was the size of a city, their surfaces jagged and black, shaped like massive daggers, pointed toward the Earth. They gave off no heat, no light, no sound. To any normal eyes, they were invisible. But they were waiting, patient and hungry. Invasion had already begun. Humanity just didn't know it yet. Out at 10:47 a.m., everything stopped. Across the entire planet, every satellite went dark at once. Weather satellites, military surveillance systems, even the networks that guided planes. And ships all dead. Television broadcasts flickered to static. Radios spat out nothing but a high-pitched tone. Cell towers failed. GPS signals vanished. It was not gradual. It was instant. A single heartbeat, and the whole world's skyborne lifelines were cut at. First, people thought it was a glitch. News anchors spoke with forced calm, reading scripts about possible solar flares or cyber attacks. Governments scrambled to understand the blackout. Scientists rushed to observatories, trying to find the cause. But then, before anyone could guess, a sound cut through every device still working televisions, car speakers, even old landlines. It was a voice. Deep, mechanical, not quite alive. It spoke in every language at once, as if the words were not spoken, but placed directly into the mind. Earth, you are now claimed. You will surrender. You will kneel. You have 1 hour to comply. Refuse, and you will be erased. There was no image, no logo, no explanation, just the voice. The message repeated 3 times, and then every device went dead. Silence followed. The streets grew still. Millions stared at their dark screens, unsure if they had heard something real or some cruel joke. Then people began to look up. At first, it was only a few astronomers with their private telescopes, military observers, with classified equipment. They saw the black shapes moving from behind the moon, gliding into the open void. They saw their size. They saw their number. They started to scream warnings to their governments. To anyone who would listen. By 11:15 a.m., the first civilians spotted them. They were small dots on the horizon, no bigger than stars at first. But they grew quickly, far too quickly to be anything normal. Within minutes, entire crowds were staring upward as the dots became larger, revealing massive angular ships descending through the clouds. The sun vanished behind their shadows. People panicked. Streets turned to rivers of chaos as cars crashed in every direction. Some ran to shelters, clutching their children. Others dropped to their knees, praying to gods they had not spoken to in years. Some stood frozen, unable to believe what they saw. The ships hovered silently above the cities. No windows, no markings, no sound except the deep thrum of their engines, like the heartbeat of a monster. For almost a minute, they simply hung there, as if watching. Then the sky burned. A white beam, brighter than the sun, lanced downward from one of the ships. It struck Jakarta, a city of millions. For a moment, the city turned to glass. Then, without warning, the glass turned to ash, and the ash blew away in a storm of heat and fire. A column of light reached from the ground to the clouds, followed by a sound so powerful it shattered windows for miles around. The city was gone. A crater, glowing like a wound in the earth, was all that remained. The world watched in horror. Billions stared at screens, at live streams, at news broadcasts, trying desperately to stay connected. They had just seen an entire city erased in seconds. The voice returned, colder than before. "This is your warning. Submit." In capitals across the planet, chaos reigned. Presidents, prime ministers, generals all shouted into dead phones. They had no satellites, no way to speak to their own militaries, let alone the world. Fighter jets scrambled, but most were shot down before they even reached the ships. Missiles were launched, but the weapons vanished mid-flight, intercepted by invisible defenses. Humanity's armies fought, but they might as well have been throwing stones at a hurricane. Above the noise, above the fear, there were places the aliens had not seen not deep under the Rocky Mountains. In a bunker no map acknowledged. A group of men and women sat around a black steel table. The air was cold, the lights dim. On the wall, a massive screen showed the alien fleet in orbit, tracked by one of the few systems the enemy had not managed to destroy. The ships glowed red on the display, each one a moving symbol of Doomdot. At the head of the table sat a man with steel-gray hair and a sharp jaw, his eyes hard and unblinking. He wore no uniform, only a black suit, but the others deferred to him without question. He studied the screen for a long time, silent. The room was so quiet, the hum of the air systems felt loud. Finally, he spoke. "They think we are prey." No one answered. No one needed to. They were all waiting for what would come next. A man pressed a button on the table. A secure line opened. A connection so deep and encrypted the aliens could not find it. "Begin the awakening," he said. Far below the oceans, the earth itself began to stir. In deep trenches, where no sunlight had ever touched, massive metal shapes rested. They had been sleeping for decades, built in secret by a coalition of humans who had seen the stars and known what might come one day. These machines were humanity's true defense, kept hidden not just from enemies, but from their own people. They were not weapons for ordinary wars. They were weapons for extinction-level threats. Now, one by one, their engines roared to life. A deep rumble rolled across the Pacific as a massive warship, black and angular, rose from beneath the waves. Water cascaded off its sides as it climbed into the air, lifted by thrusters that glowed with a strange blue fire. Its size dwarfed aircraft carriers. Its guns, sleek and menacing, swiveled toward the sky. On beaches along the coast, terrified civilians screamed, thinking it was another alien craft. But then they saw the symbol on its side, a silver star within a blue circle. No flag of any single nation. A flag for Earth itself. In orbit, the alien fleet reacted. Their scanners locked onto the human ship. It was small compared to their Titanic vessels, but its power readings spiked higher than anything they had ever measured from this planet. They hesitated, confused. This world was supposed to be primitive. Its people were supposed to crumble and beg. On the human ship's bridge, the crew worked in silence. Every hand moved with precision, every voice calm. They had trained for this moment all their lives, though they had prayed it would never come. At the center of the bridge, the captain stood. She was tall, her dark hair cut short, a scar running down her cheek from an old battle no one ever spoke of. Her uniform bore no name, no rank, only the same silver star. Her voice was cold and steady. Target the lead vessel. The ship's core began to hum. The lights dimmed as energy flooded to the forward cannon, a weapon so powerful it warped the air around it. Outside, along the length of the hull, lines of blue light flickered to life, pulsing faster and faster as the weapon charged. A sphere of light began to form at the cannon's mouth, bright enough to turn the night into day. The alien commanders barked orders, confident their shields would hold. They had crushed hundreds of worlds before. This would be no different. The human captain raised her hand. "This is not surrender," she said. Her crew's eyes locked on her. "This is Earth's answer." She dropped her hand. The cannon fired. A beam of light, pure and silent, crossed the void in less than a second. It struck the alien flagship square in the center. For an instant, everything froze. Then the ship shattered, not exploded, not burned, but shattered, breaking apart into a million glowing fragments that scattered into the void like sparks from a dying fire. The explosion was visible from the ground. Millions of people, watching in terror, gasped as the largest enemy ship simply ceased to exist. For the first time that day, hope flickered. The invincible invaders had been hurt. The sky that burned now burned for them too. On the alien channels, panic spread. Their commanders shouted in a language of clicks and roars, demanding answers. Their shields had failed. Their flagship was gone. Their scanners showed dozens of other power sources, awakening across Earth's oceans and mountains. On the human bridge, the captain watched the debris drift. "Transmit to command," she said. "The first shot is fired. Tell them the Revenant is awake." Far below, in the bunker, the man with steel-gray hair listened as the report came through. A faint smile crept across his face. "They wanted us to kneel," he murmured. "Instead, they will kneel." Outside, the alien ships began to move, weapons charging for another strike. The sky was still on fire. Earth was still on the edge of destruction. But humanity had revealed its first card. And it was only the beginning. For the first time since their arrival, the invaders felt something new, something they had never felt on any world before. Fear. And somewhere deep in the void, far beyond the battle, another presence watched in silence, taking note of humanity's first real strike. The day the sky burned was not the end. It was only the start. The morning began with quiet. Over the continents and oceans, life moved as it always did. In New York, horns blared as people rushed to work. In Tokyo, trains glided along their tracks with perfect timing. In Karachi, a boy sold tea to early commuters, shouting to passing rickshaws. The sun was bright, the clouds thin, and the world was calm. At 10:47 a.m., the calm ended. Every phone, every satellite, every camera and radar in orbit went dark. The screens in airports froze. Planes mid-flight lost their navigation systems. Television broadcasts flickered to black, and radios spat static. Even old landlines, things no hacker should touch, fell silent. People stopped in the streets, staring at their dark screens as the world's heartbeat slowed to nothing. Then came the voice. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It spoke. In every language at once, not from speakers, but from inside their minds. "Earth, you are now claimed. You will surrender. You will kneel. You have 1 hour to comply. Refuse, and you will be erased." In a small cafe in Berlin, a young woman dropped her coffee. The cup shattered on the floor, but no one looked at her. Every person in the cafe was frozen, eyes wide, hands trembling as the voice repeated. In Moscow, drivers left their cars in the streets, climbing onto hoods to look at the skies. In Cape Town, an old priest fell to his knees, whispering prayers between sobs. Then someone saw it. High above, at first no more than distant points of light, something moved. Not stars, not planes. The dots grew larger with unnatural speed. Hundreds of them, black and sharp, their surfaces catching no sunlight. They descended. Through the clouds like knives, each the size of a floating city. People screamed. Some ran for underground shelters, clutching children. Some filmed, hands shaking, voices stuttering into their phones, even though no network remained. Others simply stood frozen, staring upward as shadows swallowed the sun. The ships hovered over the largest cities: New York, London, Shanghai, Lagos. No sound but the low hum of their engines, a sound deep enough to shake the bones. For almost a full minute, they didn't fire. They simply loomed, watching. Then the first beam came. A shaft of white light, so bright it burned shadows into the ground, lanced down from a ship above Jakarta. The city didn't explode. It simply changed. Streets, cars, and people turned to glass in an instant, then crumbled to ash as the beam widened. A roar followed, so loud it shattered windows 50 kilometers away. Where millions had lived, there was now only a crater glowing like the heart of a forge. The world screamed "Doc" in Washington. Generals shouted orders into dead phones. In Paris, fighter jets scrambled, only to vanish in fire before reaching their targets. In Beijing, missiles were launched, but mid-flight they disintegrated, as if erased by invisible hands. Governments could do nothing. Armies could do nothing. But under the earth, far from the burning skies, someone was waiting in a bunker buried. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, far below where any weapon could reach, a room full of men and women sat around a black table. No one spoke. On the far wall, a screen displayed the alien fleet in orbit, each ship marked in red. The sensor feed was one of the last operational systems, not disabled by the invaders. At the head of the table sat a man with steel-gray hair. His suit was black, his face calm, but his eyes were sharp, unblinking. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, but it carried through the room like a commandment. "They think we are prey." He pressed a button on the table. Somewhere deep in the earth, a secure line opened. His words were simple: "Begin the awakening." Far below the oceans, the earth stirred. In deep trenches, where no sunlight had ever touched, enormous machines awoke. They had slept for decades, hidden from every government and civilian eye, built by those who believed one day humanity would need more than armies, more than nations. These were not defense platforms. They were not designed to hold ground. They were built to strike back. Engines rumbled, shaking the seas. One by one, black metal leviathans rose from the deep, water cascading from their hulls. They were not alien. They bore a single emblem on their sides, a silver star inside a blue circle. No nation's flag, the flag of Earth. On the shorelines of the Pacific, terrified civilians screamed as the first ship reached the surface. It was larger than an aircraft. Carrier, sleek and sharp-edged, lifting into the air on glowing thrusters. Some thought it was another invader. But then, over the wind, they heard a voice broadcast from its speakers. "This is the Revenant. Humanity does not kneel." In orbit, the alien fleet shifted. Their scanners locked on the human ship, registering energy signatures they had never seen before. It was too small to be a real threat. They had crushed entire armadas before. This would be the same. But on the Revenant's bridge, the crew worked without fear. The captain, a tall woman with a scar down her cheek, stood at the center. Her voice was calm, each word sharp as a blade. "Target the lead vessel." The ship's core thrummed, lights dimming as energy funneled to its forward weapon. Along the hull, glowing blue lines came alive, pulsing like veins. A sphere of light grew at the cannon's mouth, so bright it turned the night sky to day. The alien commanders laughed. Their shields were said to be impenetrable. No primitive planet could touch them. The captain raised her hand. "This is not surrender," she said. "This is Earth's answer." Her hand fell. The Revenant fired. The beam crossed space in a blink, a silent spear of light that struck the alien flagship dead center. For an instant, nothing happened. Then, without sound, the massive ship shattered, breaking apart into a million glowing fragments. There was no explosion, just sudden death, as if the ship had never truly existed. On the ground, millions gasped. For the first time that day, the sky's fire didn't belong to the invaders. On the alien channels, chaos erupted. Their shields had failed. Their flagship was gone. Their fleet was no longer the predator. On the bridge of the Revenant, the captain stared at the debris. "Transmit to command," she said. "The first shot is fired." Far below, in the mountain bunker, the man with steel-gray hair heard the message. His lips curled into a thin smile. "They wanted us to kneel," he murmured. "Instead, they will kneel." The sky still burned. The invasion was far from over. But humanity had given its first answer, and it would not be the last. The shattered remains of the alien flagship drifted silently in orbit, glowing like dying embers against the black. For a brief moment, there was silence across the battlefield. A silence filled not with peace, but shock. Billions of eyes on. Earth watched the fragments burn, unsure if they had truly seen what just happened. Then the other alien ships moved, the surviving fleet hundreds, strong split into 3 massive formations. Their engines roared like storms, their hulls pulsing with red light as they descended closer to the planet. They were not retreating. They were angry. In London, the sky turned crimson as the first formation passed overhead. The air trembled. Sirens wailed, but people already knew the sound was useless. Underground shelters filled with panicked crowds, parents clinging to children, old men whispering prayers. On the surface, soldiers manned checkpoints with rifles. They knew were meaningless. Above them, one of the alien ships began to charge its weapon. The air around it shimmered, as though reality itself was bending. But before the beam could fire, a second human ship rose from beneath the Atlantic. Vanguard Dot. It was smaller than the Revenant, but no less deadly. Its engines cut through the waves, lifting it high into the air as the ocean frothed below. Its cannons glowed a deep blue, each shot gathering energy like a miniature sun. The Vanguard turned its guns on the alien ship above London and fired. Before the enemy could react, 3 beams lanced upward. The alien ship's shields flared bright red and shattered. The second beam punched through its midsection, tearing it apart. The third struck its weapon core, igniting a chain reaction. The ship exploded in a silent flash, its remains falling into the Thames like burning meteors on the ground. Thousands watched through tears of terror and awe. For the first time, humanity was not just surviving. It was fighting back. On the Revenant's bridge, the crew watched the destruction unfold through tactical displays. The captain stood silent for a moment before speaking. "Vanguard reports. Shields are holding. They've confirmed 4 more awakenings in the Pacific." A junior officer turned in his chair. "Ma'am, command has authorized the use of the Ghost Fleet." The captain's scarred face didn't change. "Deploy them. All of them. From the depths of the oceans, deserts, and even within hollowed mountains, the rest of humanity's hidden arsenal stirred. Dozens of ships, some the size of cities themselves, others lean and fast like predators, began to rise. These were not known to any government outside the small circle. They had been built in secret for nearly a century. A response to whispers of danger far beyond the stars above Earth, the alien fleet scanned these new arrivals. The readings were impossible. Energy levels spiked so high, their computers flagged the data as corrupted. The invaders had crushed hundreds of worlds before. No world had ever unleashed this much firepower. Their commanders made a decision. If Earth had weapons like these, they could not afford to wait. Eradicate the planet? Their order broadcast in a language of clicks and hisses. No survivors. The alien ships began to realign. Dozens of colossal cannons extended, each aimed at a major city, Power built in glowing red veins along their hulls, lighting the clouds like veins of lava. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the energy gathering above Dot in New York. Millions braced for impact. Some screamed, others prayed, others simply stood frozen, staring at the crimson clouds. Dot, and then the Revenant fired again. This time, it wasn't a single shot. The ship's cannon split into 3 streams of energy, each lancing across the sky toward separate targets. The beams didn't just hit ships, they cut through them, slicing them apart like paper. 3 alien warships exploded at once, their cannons going dark before they could fire. Simultaneously, the Vanguard and 2 other awakened ships, the Erebus and the Horizon, unleashed volleys of weapons humanity had never admitted existed, sphere-shaped projectiles that phased through shields before detonating inside enemy hulls. Alien ships fell like burning stars. Dot in the bunker beneath the Rockies. A man with the steel-gray hair watched the holographic display. Red icons representing alien vessels were disappearing one by one. But his expression remained cold. "They'll adapt," he said. "They always do. Prepare Phase 2. A young operative hesitated. "Sir, if we go to Phase 2, we can't hide what we've built anymore. The whole world will know." The man's eyes narrowed. "The world will either know or burn. Choose." Above Earth, the alien fleet rallied. They were losing ships, but they were not beaten. Their second wave began to descend through the atmosphere, hundreds of smaller attack craft breaking off from the larger vessels. These were hunter-killers, fast, agile, built for precision strikes. Their goal wasn't just destruction. It was panic. Dot. They dove toward the cities, leaving burning trails in their wake. On the ground, chaos erupted. Streets turned into rivers of screaming humanity. Fighter jets tried to intercept, but were ripped apart by weapons too fast to track. In Tokyo, one of the alien craft strafed entire districts with a crimson beam, cutting through buildings like knives through paper. In Lagos, 3 ships hovered low, unleashing swarms of drones that fired into crowds without mercy. Then, from the shadows, humanity's other weapons appeared. They weren't ships. They weren't planes. They were autonomous drones, sleek, silent, shaped like arrows. They launched from hidden silos worldwide, their black surfaces absorbing light. These were the Sentinels. Each was controlled by a combat AI designed to predict enemy movements before they made them. The Sentinels didn't fire conventional weapons. They struck with arcs of contained plasma, cutting through alien craft as easily as the aliens had cut through humans hours before. Entire waves of enemy hunters fell in seconds, the wreckage lighting the skies over dozens of cities. Dot on the Revenant. The captain's voice was steady as the reports poured in. "Vanguard, Erebus, Horizon report minimal damage. Sentinel units are engaging ground-level targets. Civilian casualties remain high, but the tide is shifting." The first officer turned to her. "Ma'am, command says the council ship is moving into position." The captain's expression darkened. "So we're really doing it then?" "Yes, ma'am. The Eclipse cannon is online." Her hand gripped the railing as she looked out at the enemy fleet. "Then let's show them what Earth really built." The alien fleet tightened its formation as the battle raged. Dozens of their ships were already gone, earned away by weapons they had not expected from a world they considered primitive. But their commanders were not panicked. They had fought wars across hundreds of stars. They had crushed rebellions, silenced entire civilizations, and erased planets from existence. Earth, they told themselves, would be no different. Dot in the heart of their armada. The command Nexus, a ship larger than any other, pulsed with energy. Its core glowed crimson as its weapon systems powered up. This would be no surgical strike. This would be annihilation. Below, the Revenant, Vanguard, and the newly awakened Earth fleet formed a defensive wall above the planet. Dozens of sleek, black holes hovered in low orbit, their guns tracking targets with cold precision. The sentinels darted between them, intercepting waves of alien drones. For every human ship that took damage, 3 alien ships fell, but the numbers were still. Against Earth, on the Revenant's bridge, the captain watched the tactical display, jaw tight. The enemy was adapting. Their shields were shifting frequencies faster than her gunners could track. What worked minutes ago was starting to fail. Her first officer turned toward her. "Ma'am, the Council ship is in position. The Eclipse cannon is charged." The captain glanced toward the largest human ship in orbit. It dwarfed even the Revenant, a colossal fortress bristling with weaponry. Along its spine, a single cannon stretched for nearly a kilometer, glowing with a dim, unstable light. It was the most powerful weapon humanity had ever built, but it had never been used outside simulations. Even its existence was a secret to most of the crews fighting in orbit. Her voice was steady, but quiet. "Link us in." A secure channel opened. On the screen before her, the image of the man with steel-gray hair appeared. His face was calm, almost expressionless, but his eyes carried something hard. "Captain," he said, "the Eclipse cannon will fire in 90 seconds. Your fleet will draw the enemy close. We will end this in one shot." She hesitated. "Sir, if this fails—" "It won't." His voice left no room for doubt. "The galaxy is watching, Captain. Make sure they remember who we are." The channel closed. The captain exhaled, then turned to her crew. "All ships, fall back toward the Nexus. Force them to cluster. Hold until the Eclipse fires." The Revenant surged forward, its cannons blazing. Blue-white beams lanced out, ripping through another alien vessel. The Vanguard and Erebus followed suit, driving the enemy into a tight formation near Earth's shadow side. Alien fire raked their hulls, energy blasts tearing through armor, but the human ships held their ground dot in cities below. People looked to the skies, seeing streaks of light and explosions painting the heavens. They didn't understand what was happening. All they knew was that the end of the world had not yet come dot above them. The Eclipse cannon reached full charge. Along its kilometer-long barrel, arcs of unstable light crackled like lightning, tearing through space itself. The weapon hummed with a low, deep vibration that made even seasoned soldiers shift uncomfortably dot inside the command nexus. Alien commanders noticed. Their scanners lit up with warnings, their AI systems screaming of an energy buildup beyond measurable scales. For the first time since arriving, the invaders hesitated dot, and then the Eclipse fired dot. It wasn't a beam. It wasn't a missile. It was a pulse of pure gravity, an artificial collapse of space itself. A ripple of distorted light swept outward, invisible except for the way it bent stars and ships alike. The alien fleet's shields failed instantly, their hulls groaning as the wave hit. Dozens of ships crumpled in on themselves, collapsing like paper under a fist. Others were torn apart by the sudden distortion, their remains scattering into orbit. The command nexus took the brunt of the strike. Its core flared bright crimson, then dimmed to black as the ship buckled. Its hull fractured, segments tearing free and tumbling into the void. With a final silent flash, the nexus imploded, vanishing into a pinprick of light. Silence followed. The surviving alien ships, only a fraction of what had arrived, broke formation. Some powered down their weapons. Others turned away entirely, retreating into the black. For the first time, the invaders didn't speak. On the Revenant's bridge, the crew stared at the tactical display. Dozens of red icons had simply vanished. The first officer broke the silence. "They're retreating. We did it." The captain didn't smile. Her eyes stayed on the display. No, this wasn't their full strength. They didn't come here to conquer. She tapped a control, enlarging a signal on the screen. A faint transmission, intercepted during the battle. It was a message, not from the fleet, but to it. A language partially decoded, translated into halting English. Report. Measure their resistance. Do not destroy. The Empire will decide if they are to join or be erased. The bridge went silent. Every crew member stared at the words. The captain finally spoke, her voice low. They weren't here to win. They were here to test us. Her first officer swallowed. Test us for what? The captain looked out the viewport toward the retreating enemy ships. For the real invasion, she said. Far below, in the mountain bunker, the man with steel-gray hair listened to the same transmission. His face didn't change, but his voice was a whisper. So, the galaxy sends scouts, and they bleed. Let them tell their masters what they found. He turned to his aides. Wake the rest of the fleet. We're not waiting for their next move. We take this fight to them. Above Earth, the Revenant and the surviving human fleet turned their guns outward, engines powering up for their first jump beyond the solar system. The invasion wasn't over. It hadn't even truly begun, and humanity was done waiting. The shattered remains of the alien flagship still glowed in the void, drifting like broken embers. For a few breaths, the battlefield was silent. Billions of humans stared at their screens, wondering if Earth had just taken its only shot. And if the aliens were about to answer, they did. The surviving fleet moved as one, hundreds of city-sized warships splitting into attack lines. Their engines roared like distant storms, the red veins of their hulls pulsing brighter as they closed. And on the planet, on the streets of London, the sky turned blood red. Sirens howled through streets clogged with terrified crowds. Soldiers shouted orders, rifles shaking in their hands even though they knew bullets meant nothing. Above, a ship large enough to eclipse the city itself began to charge its weapon. The air shimmered, bending as the beam gathered strength. Then the ocean roared. From the depths of the Atlantic, a shape rose sleek, black, and massive. Water cascaded from its sides as its thrusters ignited, lifting it into the stormy sky. It was the Vanguard, humanity's second awakened warship. Its engines burned a cold blue, its forward guns humming as energy built. Civilians screamed, thinking it another alien craft, until they saw the symbol on its side, a silver star inside, a blue circle. No nation's flag, the flag of Earth. The Vanguard fired before the alien ship could finish charging. 3 beams lanced upward, blue, white, and silent. The first struck the enemy shields, shattering them in a flash of red. The second tore through the ship's midsection, slicing it open. The third hit its weapon core. In a single flash, the alien ship was reduced to a falling storm of debris, burning as it plunged toward the ocean. On the ground, thousands watched in shock. For the first time, humanity wasn't just surviving. It was winning. But the aliens weren't finished. Dozens more of their ships descended, releasing swarms of smaller hunter craft. They dove toward Earth's cities, weaving between skyscrapers, strafing crowds with beams of crimson light. Streets became rivers of chaos. Fighter jets scrambled to intercept, but the alien ships moved too fast. In Tokyo, entire blocks were leveled in seconds. In Lagos, swarms of alien drones hunted civilians like prey. And then the shadows moved. From silos hidden deep in mountains and deserts, humanity's other weapons launched. They were not ships. They were not planes. They were sentinels sleek, arrow-shaped drones coated in black armor that swallowed light. They struck without warning, slashing through alien craft with arcs of contained plasma. The skies above Earth lit up as hunter-killers became the hunted, falling in burning pieces over dozens of cities. On the Revenant's bridge, the captain watched the tactical display, her face unreadable. Vanguard reports shield stable. Erebus and Horizon are engaging targets over the Pacific. Sentinel units holding ground-level defense. Civilian losses remain high, but the tide is shifting. Her first officer turned. "Ma'am, command just signaled. The council ship is ready. The Eclipse cannon is charged." The captain's eyes narrowed. "So we're really doing it," she said quietly. "Yes, ma'am. The order is to herd the enemy close, then fire." She stared at the display for a long second. Beyond the chaos, the alien fleet was still massive, still far more than Earth's ships could destroy through conventional means. But if the Eclipse cannon worked as promised, her hand tightened on the railing. All ships converge on there. Nexus. Drive them into position. Make sure they stay clustered. Her eyes stayed fixed on the void outside, where alien ships still burned against the stars. Then let's show them what Earth really built. Ends with the tension before the Eclipse cannon is revealed. Perfect cliffhanger. Segment 2. The Eclipse fires, approximately 2,000 words, 6 to 7 minutes. The alien fleet closed ranks, their titanic warships shifting into a tight wall above the planet. They had lost dozens of ships, but they were far from defeated. Their leaders barked orders in a language of hisses and clicks, their AI predicting every human move. Earth's defenses were strong, but the aliens had numbers. If the battle dragged on, humanity would burn dot at the center of their armada loomed. The command Nexus, a ship larger than any other, its core glowing crimson. Along its flanks, colossal cannons unfolded, each one capable of leveling a continent in a single strike dot in low orbit. The human fleet tightened formation. The Revenant, Vanguard, and over a dozen other awakened warships flew in perfect synchronization, their weapons firing in controlled bursts to push the alien ships closer together. They were herding giants into a trap. Inside the mountain bunker, the man with steel-gray hair watched the holographic map. Red enemy icons clustered where he wanted them. His voice was calm as he gave the final command. Fire the Eclipse. Far. Above, the council ship powered up. It was the largest human warship ever built, a silent titan that had never been revealed to the world. Along its kilometer-long spine, the Eclipse cannon hummed to life. Sparks of distorted light danced along, its length tearing the very fabric of space. The weapon thrummed like a living thing, a deep vibration that could be felt even miles away. On alien channels, alarms blared. Their scanners detected the energy surge, their AI screaming warnings. The readings didn't match any known weapon. This wasn't plasma. It wasn't kinetic. It was something worse. The Eclipse fired. There was no flash, no explosion, just a ripple, like a stone dropped into a cosmic pond. Space itself seemed to fold and twist as a wave of crushing gravity surged outward. The alien fleet's shields failed instantly, collapsing as their hulls groaned under forces they couldn't counter. Dozens of warships imploded, crumpling into twisted wreckage. Others shattered apart, their pieces scattering like burning confetti. Into the void, the command Nexus was the last to fall. Its crimson core flared as it tried to stabilize, but the wave ripped through its frame. Segments of the ship tore free, spinning into space before the entire vessel folded inward and vanished into a single, glowing point. Silence followed. The surviving alien ships powered down their weapons. Some broke formation and jumped away into deep space without a word. Others simply drifted, as if waiting for new orders. The threat, for now, was gone. On the Revenant's bridge, the first officer exhaled. They're retreating. We actually did it. But the captain didn't. Celebrate. Her eyes were locked on the intercepted transmission, still glowing on her display. A fragment of the alien's orders, partially decoded. Report. Measure their resistance. Do not destroy. The Empire will decide if they are to join. Or B. Erased. The crew stared at the words. The captain finally spoke, her voice low and cold. They weren't here to conquer us. They were here to test us. Her first officer swallowed. Test us. For what? The captain turned her gaze to the stars where the enemy had fled. For something worse. She said, far below, in the mountain bunker, a man with steel-gray hair listened to the same transmission. His face stayed expressionless as he gave. His final order: wake the rest of the fleet. The galaxy knows we can fight. Now we take this war to them. Above Earth, the surviving human ships turned outward, engines flaring bright as they prepared their first jump beyond the solar. System. The invasion wasn't over. It had barely begun. And humanity was done waiting. The sky above Earth was burning. The shattered remains of the alien flagship still drifted like glowing embers in orbit. For a breath. The battlefield was silent. Slight pause. Billions of humans stared upward or at dead screens, holding their breath, wondering, was that it? Did Earth just land its only shot? Quicker, rising tension. The answer came fast. The alien fleet moved like a storm. Hundreds of city-sized warships split into attack lines, engines glowing red, their deep hum shaking the atmosphere as they descended closer to the planet. In London, the sky turned blood red. Sirens screamed. Crowds panicked, shoving into underground shelters. Soldiers braced with weapons they knew wouldn't matter. And above, one massive alien ship charged a beam so powerful it warped the very air. Dramatic pause. Then the ocean erupted. From the depths of the Atlantic, a black, angular shape broke the surface water, cascading as thrusters roared to life. The Vanguard had awakened. It soared skyward, engines burning a cold blue. Some civilians screamed, thinking it was another alien weapon. But when they saw the symbol on its hull, a silver star inside a blue circle, they froze. Humanity had sent another answer. Strong, sharp tone. The Vanguard fired. 3 blue-white beams sliced the sky. The first shattered the alien ship's shields in a blinding flash. The second ripped through its center. The third hit its core. And the invader came apart in a rain of burning metal, plunging into the ocean below. For the first time that day, Earth was fighting back, but the enemy wasn't done. Dozens more alien ships descended, releasing swarms of smaller hunter craft fast, lethal, merciless. They dove into the cities, cutting streets apart, hurting civilians like prey. Fighter. Jets scrambled to intercept and were shredded before they ever closed the gap. Low, rising voice. And then, humanity unleashed something darker. From deep silos buried worldwide, sleek black drones launched silently into the sky. The Sentinels. They were no larger than a fighter jet, no brighter than a shadow. But they didn't miss. Each arc of contained plasma they struck with ripped through alien craft like paper. The hunters became the hunted as alien wreckage fell burning over a dozen cities. On the Revenant's bridge, the captain's voice stayed calm. Vanguard reports shield stable. Erebus and Horizon are engaging. Sentinels are holding the line. The tide is shifting. Her first officer turned. Ma'am. Command just signaled. The council ship is ready. The Eclipse cannon is charged. The captain's scarred face hardened. So, we're really doing this. Slow, dark tone. She gripped the railing, staring out at the burning sky. All ships converge on their nexus. Drive them together. Pause. And let's show them what Earth really built. Above Earth, the war was far from over. The alien fleet closed ranks, Titanic warships locking into a massive wall. Dozens had fallen, but their commanders weren't panicking. Not yet. At the center of it all loomed their command nexus, a ship so vast it eclipsed the stars behind it. Its core pulsed like a beating heart, glowing crimson as colossal weapons. Unfolded along its flanks, this was no more testing. This was extermination. Pause, rising tension, in low orbit. Earth's awakening fleet braced itself. The Revenant, the Vanguard, and a dozen more black, angular warships formed a line. There. Guns cutting through alien formations like a blade. But they weren't winning by brute force. They were hurting the enemy, pulling them into one place deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The man with the steel-gray hair stood before a massive display. The alien ships glowed red as they bunched. Together, his voice was calm. Fire the eclipse. Slight pause, lower voice. Far above, the council ship powered up. The largest human warship ever built, silent until this moment. Along its kilometer-long spine, arcs of raw light began to crackle, tearing the fabric of space itself. The weapon thrummed like a living creature, its deep vibration echoing through the void. On alien channels, alarms screamed. Their scanners detected an energy surge beyond anything in their archives. This wasn't plasma. This wasn't a missile. This was something far worse. Pause for effect, then sharp tone. The eclipse fired. There was no flash. No sound. Just a ripple, as if the stars themselves bent and shivered. The wave of collapsing gravity swept outward. Alien shields failed instantly. Hull plates groaned and buckled. Dozens of warships folded inward, imploding into twisted wreckage. Others shattered, their remains scattering into orbit like shards of a broken planet. The command Nexus tried to resist, its crimson core flaring, but the wave tore through its frame. Its segments broke free, spinning into the black. And then, with a final silent collapse, the Nexus vanished into a single glowing point. Pause, softer tone. The battlefield fell silent. The surviving alien ships stopped. Some drifted. Some turned and jumped into deep space without a word. For the first time since their arrival, they were retreating. On the Revenant's bridge, the first officer whispered, "They're pulling back. We did it." But the captain's face stayed cold. Her eyes were on the intercepted transmission, still pulsing on her screen. Report. Measure their resistance. Do not destroy. The Empire will decide if they are to join or be erased. The crew went still. The captain's voice was quiet. They weren't here to conquer. Not yet. This was just a test. Her first. Officer swallowed. Test us for what? She turned her gaze to the stars where the enemy had fled. For something worse, she said, deep, slow delivery. In the mountain bunker, the man with steel-gray hair spoke his final command. Wake. The rest of the fleet. The galaxy knows we can fight. Now, we take this war to them. Above Earth, the Revenant and humanity's black fleet turned outward. Engines ignited, blue trails cutting across the void. The invasion wasn't over. It hadn't even truly begun. And humanity was done waiting. The galaxy burned. For weeks, the Black Armada had swept through enemy space, leaving only wreckage behind. Dozens of systems had fallen silent, their orbital fortresses shattered, their fleets turned to drifting ash. Worlds that once bowed to. The Empire now stared in stunned silence as human warships passed by, their black hulls gleaming like predators in the void. But this was different. The final system was ahead. The heart of the Empire. The place where the true masters hid, the ones who had sent the first fleet to test Earth, who had measured humanity's strength like a butcher sizing up cattle. The humans weren't here to be measured anymore. They were here to end it. The Revenant, scarred from a dozen battles, led the fleet. The Vanguard, Erebus, and Horizon flanked her, each ship carrying fresh scars of its own. Behind them, the rest of the Armada stretched across the stars over. 100 awakened ships, every weapon Earth had hidden for a century. Inside the Revenant's bridge, the captain stood in silence, staring at the holomap. Ahead, a cluster of red icons pulsed like a living wound. It wasn't a fleet, it was an ocean. Thousands of alien warships, some so massive they dwarfed cities, clustered around the Empire's core world. Her first officer broke the silence. "Ma'am, we're outnumbered 100 to 1. The captain's scarred face didn't change. Then we evened the odds." At her signal, the holomap shifted. Dozens of faint blue markers appeared, hidden weapons already seated across the system. Mines, automated railguns, and something darker. Autonomous ships, completely AI-driven, waiting to strike. The galaxy thought Earth had been fighting with everything. It hadn't. The man with steel-gray hair appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from the council ship far behind the lines. His voice was calm, but cold. "This is it. No retreat, no fallback. Today, we end the Empire or humanity burns with us." The fleet didn't answer with cheers. They didn't need to. Every crew member already knew there would be no second chances. As the Armada surged forward, the alien fleet began to move. Their formation rippled like a living organism, thousands of ships aligning into a wall of crimson light. The void lit up as their weapons charged, enough energy to tear apart moons. And then, the sky itself tore open. From behind the alien Armada, something emerged. A shipno, a fortress so large it blotted out entire constellations. Its hull was a smooth obsidian, its surface alive with shifting patterns of red light. The Empire's flagship. The captain's hand tightened on the railing. So, they finally show themselves. The ship's very presence sent tremors through nearby scanners. Gravity bent around it. Energy readings spiked so high the Revenant systems flagged them as errors. Then it spoke, not with words, but with a signal that echoed in every human ship, directly into the minds of their crews. "You should have stayed silent. You should have died quietly. Now, your species will end." The captain's expression didn't change. She simply gave the order. All ships, weapons free. The Black Armada charges. The stars erupted. The galaxy was fire. Humanity's Black Armada had cut a path through the Empire's outer defenses like a blade through cloth. Entire fleets had crumbled before them. Orbital fortresses that had stood for centuries had been torn apart in hours. The stars themselves seemed to burn in the wake of Earth's advance, but this was no longer about survival. Ahead lay the core of the Empire, the final system, the place where the first invasion had been ordered, the ones who had tested Earth, measured its strength, and marked it for destruction. Now, Earth had come to their doorstep. The Revenant, still bearing the scars of a dozen battles, led the charge. On either side, the Vanguard, Erebus, and Horizon moved in formation, their black hulls glinting with faint blue light. Behind them stretched the rest of humanity's fleet, over 100 awakened warships, each bristling with weapons the galaxy still didn't believe humans could build. Inside the Revenant's bridge, the crew stared at the holomap. Ahead, red icons spread across the display like a bleeding wound. Thousands of enemy ships. Not hundreds, thousands. They filled the system like a living tide, their formation a shifting wall of crimson. The first officer's voice was steady, but his hands gripped the console tight. "Ma'am, they outnumber us by more than 100 to 1. The captain's scarred face didn't change. Then we evened the odds." With a flick of her wrist, the map shifted. Dozens of faint blue markers appeared across the enemy system mines, automated railguns, and stealth ships seated in the void over the past week. The Empire thought humanity had thrown everything at them already. They hadn't seen the rest. A new image appeared on the display. The man with the steel-gray hair, seated aboard the council ship, his face lit by cold blue light. His voice came through the bridge speakers, calm but carrying an edge of finality. This is it. No retreat. No fallback. Today, we break the Empire, or humanity dies with us. There was no cheer, no rallying cry. Everyone already understood. The crews of the Black Armada didn't expect to return home. The captain turned to her crew. Signal the fleet. Ready all weapons. Prepare the eclipse. For final charge, the Armada surged forward. Blue engine trails lit the dark, like falling stars as the fleet accelerated toward the enemy formation. The Empire moved to meet them. Their ships realigned into a spearhead formation, thousands of vols. Warships advancing as one. Crimson energy pulsed along their hulls, their weapons charging. The void between the two forces seemed to tremble, a silence so heavy it felt alive. Then, the stars dimmed. Something massive emerged behind the enemy fleet. A shadow blotted out. The constellations, a ship so vast, it made the Revenant look like a grain of dust. Its obsidian surface rippled with veins of red light, alive and shifting like molten rivers. Gravity itself warped around it, tugging at nearby vessels. The captain's grip on the railing tightened. So, they finally show themselves. The Empire's flagship. Its presence made every human scanner scream warnings. Energy readings spiked so high the Revenant systems flagged them as errors. Then the ship spoke. Not through comms, not through sound, but directly into the minds of every human aboard every ship. You should have stayed silent. You should have died quietly. Now, your species will end. For a moment, some of the younger crew froze. The voice carried weight and almost physical pressure in their skulls, cold and suffocating. But the captain didn't flinch. All ships, she said, voice calm. Weapons free. The Black Armada charges. The stars erupted. Hundreds of beams cut through the void, streaks of blue and red colliding in brilliant explosions. The first wave of enemy ships was shredded by humanity's hidden mines, detonating as they crossed the kill zone. The second wave met a wall of automated guns rail slugs, traveling at fractions of light speed, tearing through alien hulls like they were made of paper. But still, the tide came on. The Empire's front line unleashed a storm of energy. Whole sections of space lit up with crimson as weapons fired in coordinated volleys, erasing entire clusters of human drones and slicing through two of the smaller awakened ships. The horizon took a glancing hit. Its shields flared, then collapsed, a gaping wound opening along its side. It kept moving, guns still blazing. The Revenant plowed through the chaos, firing broadside cannons into the largest enemy vessels. Each shot left a burning hole the size of a skyscraper, but for every alien ship that fell, 10 more loomed in its place. Then the flagship moved. It didn't fire like the others. Instead, its hull rippled as panels shifted, revealing a single massive aperture along its spine. Light gathered there, bright enough to dim the stars around it. The captain's eyes narrowed. All ships evasive, now. The flagship fired. A beam not of plasma, but of raw force swept across the void. Space itself seemed to tear as the energy passed. 3 human ships vanished instantly, crushed to debris before they could scream. The wave continued, clipping the Erebus and tearing away a third of its hull before dissipating. For the first time, the Armada faltered. On the council ship, alarms blared. The man with steel-gray hair stood among the chaos, his voice cutting through the noise. Divert power to the eclipse. We end this with one shot, or we don't end it at all. In orbit, the massive eclipse cannon aboard the council ship began to charge. Its barrel glowed with unstable light, arcs of energy dancing along its length. The weapon hummed so deeply it rattled bones, a low growl that echoed through every deck. But the enemy saw it coming. Dozens of alien ships broke from the line, accelerating toward the council ship. Swarms of drones followed, a living tide meant to destroy the cannon before it could fire. The captain's voice came across the fleet-wide channel. Revenant, Vanguard, Horizon on me. We hold that line or the cannon dies. Engage at will. The three lead ships surged forward, engines screaming. Their guns spat blue fire into the approaching swarm, carving a path through the chaos. The Vanguard rammed one enemy cruiser head-on, tearing it apart as it fired point-blank into another. On the Revenant's bridge, the captain stood unshaken even as the ship rocked from near misses. Target their escorts. Clear the cannons. Path. The Eclipse cannon's glow intensified. Space warped around its barrel. The alien flagship turned toward it, energy building for another planet-killing shot. 30 seconds. The weapons officer shouted dot on the holomap. The flagship's energy spike surged. 20 seconds. The alien fleet closed like a tightening noose. 10. And then the lights across the Revenant flickered. The bridge screens went dark. Systems cut out one by one. Across the fleet, ships powered down as if something had pulled the life from their cores. The Eclipse cannon's glow faded. A new signal flooded every human channel, overriding all others. A voice, colder than before, filled every mind at once. Enough. From the darkness beyond the battlefield, another shape emerged. Dot. It was not a ship. It was a station no, a construct the size of a small moon, drifting from behind the systems. Star. Its surface was a perfect sphere of polished black, dotted with faint red lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. The voice spoke again. You have proven you can bleed us. But this war was never yours to win. Submit or be erased. The construct's surface began to open, revealing something within a swirling, growing mass of light and shadow, as if the void itself was alive. The captain, gripping the railing. In the dark, whispered the only word anyone could. What is that? The construct pulsed once. Every human ship's system stayed dead. The alien fleet halted, silent as the void, and for the first time, even the Empire's own commanders looked afraid.